Hello everyone, and welcome back to When She Broke Us channel. Today, we have an incredible story, one that's dark, emotional, and shocking. It's a story about betrayal, humiliation, and the kind of heartbreak that leaves scars you can't see. We're sitting down with a man whose story will take you through a whirlwind of emotions, and I promise you, this is one you won't be able to look away from. From the first moment, through the betrayal, to the shocking aftermath, this is raw, unfiltered truth. So sit tight, make sure you're not alone for this one, and hear it straight from him. Let's start at the beginning. Can you tell us your name and a little about yourself, and then share your story with us?
I found the receipt on a Tuesday, not crumpled in a pocket or hidden in a drawer. Just there, on the kitchen counter next to the coffee maker, ordinary as morning light. Westbrook Inn, room 247, 2 nights. The date was last month, during her supposed girls' weekend in Boston. I stood there holding my empty mug, staring at those printed letters until they blurred into meaningless shapes. My name is David. I'm 34, a software architect for a healthcare startup in Portland, Oregon, and until that Tuesday morning, I thought I understood my life. I thought I knew my wife. Rachel and I had been married for 6 years. We met at a friend's wedding, cliché, I know, where she caught the bouquet and I caught her eye. She was a physical therapist with hands that could find tension in muscles I didn't know I had and a laugh that made strangers turn around and smile. We bought our house in Beaverton 3 years ago, a craftsman with good bones that needed work. We were the work-in-progress couple, always planning the next renovation, the next vacation, the next chapter. I put the receipt back exactly where I found it. My hand wasn't shaking. That's what I remember most. How steady my hand was, how calm I felt, like I was debugging code, isolating a problem. I poured my coffee, added cream the way I always did, and sat down at the table where we'd had breakfast together for 6 years. Rachel came downstairs 20 minutes later, already dressed for work in navy scrubs. Her dark hair pulled back in that messy bun she could somehow make look intentional. She kissed the top of my head. She always did that, had to stand on her toes to reach, and grabbed a yogurt from the fridge. "You're quiet this morning," she said. "Just tired. Rough night with the database migration. You work too hard." She squeezed my shoulder. "I'll be late tonight. Jenny's covering the evening shift, but I promised I'd help her with inventory. Probably 7:30, 8. I nodded. Jenny was her coworker, had been for 4 years. I'd met her at the clinic's holiday party. Remembered her boyfriend, a contractor named Mike who talked too much about his vintage Mustang. "Want me to pick up Thai food?" Rachel asked. "Sure. The usual?" "The usual." She smiled, and it was her real smile, the one that crinkled the corners of her eyes. Then she left, and I sat there listening to her car pull out of the driveway, hearing the familiar sound fade into the morning traffic on Cedar Hills Boulevard. The receipt was still on the counter. I picked it up again, this time taking a photo with my phone before putting it in my wallet. I don't know why. Evidence? Insurance? Some part of me already moving toward an ending I couldn't yet see? I called in sick to work, first time in 2 years, and spent the morning doing what I trained myself to do. Analyze systems, find patterns, identify anomalies. I went through our credit card statements online. The Westbrook in charge wasn't there. She'd paid cash or used a card I didn't know about. I checked her usual Boston girls' weekend photos on Instagram. There she was at Legal Seafoods with her college friends, Marina and Beth. Dated correctly, tagged correctly, but Instagram timestamps could be manipulated. Photos could be scheduled. I felt sick doing this, like I was violating something sacred, breaking into my own marriage from the outside. But I couldn't stop. By noon, I'd found 3 more anomalies. A dentist appointment on her calendar that our dental office had no record of. A Wednesday afternoon last month when she said she was at a continuing education seminar. I'd called the clinic to confirm, left a message with the receptionist saying I'd bring lunch, but Rachel never called back, and when I tried again, she was with a patient. And there were the text messages, or rather, the absence of them. Rachel usually texted me throughout the day, funny patient stories, photos of her lunch, random thoughts. But on certain days marked now in my mental calendar, there was nothing. Radio silence for 6, 7 hours. I sat on our back deck, looking at the garden she'd planted last spring. Tomatoes were ripening on the vine, herbs spilling over their raised beds. She'd done all this, put her hands in the soil, planned the layout, watered every evening when she got home. This was real. Her life here was real. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the receipt was from someone else, left behind by accident. Maybe my phone buzzed. Marcus, my best friend since college, texting about drinks Friday night. Marcus was a divorce attorney. The irony wasn't lost on me. I didn't respond. That evening, Rachel came home at 8:15 with Thai food, apologizing for being late. We ate at the kitchen table, and she told me about a patient who'd been in a car accident, about the long road of recovery ahead, about how rewarding it was to see progress. She was animated, engaged, present. Her hand reached across the table and touched mine. "You seem distant," she said. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just the migration. It's stressing me out." "You need a vacation." "We both do." She paused. "What about that trip to Cannon Beach we talked about? Just a weekend, before the weather turns." "That sounds good." She smiled and I smiled back, and we were playing house, playing marriage, playing whatever this was. I didn't ask about the receipt. Not then. Not yet. Instead, over the next week, I did something I'm not proud of. I tracked her. Not with spyware or GPS, I couldn't cross that line, but with attention. I noticed when she left for work, when she came home. I called the clinic at random times, always with an excuse, always hearing her in the background or getting confirmation she was there. I checked her gym's parking lot on the nights she said she was working out. I verified, cross-referenced, investigated my own wife like she was a suspect in my personal crime drama. And she checked out. Every single time. She was exactly where she said she was. Except for Wednesday afternoons. Every other Wednesday, her calendar blocked out 2 hours for PT admin work. But when I casually asked her about it one morning, just curious, "Honey, what kind of admin work takes that long?" She paused for just a second too long before answering. "Oh, it's boring stuff. Reviewing treatment plans, updating patient files, insurance paperwork. You know how it is." I didn't know how it was, but I knew the pause. I'd heard it before, years ago, when she'd lied about not wanting a surprise party for her 30th birthday. She'd paused then too, just half a second, a microscopic hesitation before the lie. The following Wednesday, I did something unforgivable. I left work at noon, drove to her clinic, and parked across the street where I could see the entrance. I sat there feeling like the worst version of myself, like every suspicious husband in every bad movie, holding a cold cup of coffee from Dutch Brothers and watching the door. At 1:47 p.m., Rachel walked out, but she wasn't alone. She was with a man I didn't recognize. Tall, maybe 40, wearing a blazer and jeans. They stood close, talking, and then, I watched this happen, watched it like a scene through glass. He touched her arm and she laughed. Not her polite laugh. Her real one. They walked to his car, a silver Lexus, and got in. He drove. I followed, staying 3 cars back, feeling my heart pound against my ribs. This was it. This was the moment everything changed. He drove to a cafe in Northwest Portland, one of those places with exposed brick and overpriced coffee. They went inside. I parked down the street, watched through the window. They sat across from each other. They talked. He showed her something on his laptop. She made notes on a yellow legal pad. For 90 minutes they sat there, talking. Working. It looked like work. It looked like a meeting. They didn't touch again. Didn't hold hands. Didn't kiss. At 3:45 they walked back to his car. He drove her back to the clinic. She got out, waved, and he drove away. I sat in my car, completely lost. That night I did ask, casually, carefully, while we were cooking dinner together. "How was your day?" "Long. Mrs. Patterson's hip replacement recovery is slower than expected." "What about admin work? Get through all that boring paperwork?" "Yeah, mostly." She was chopping vegetables, not looking at me. "Insurance stuff is such a nightmare. I swear they change the requirements every month." "Rachel." Something in my voice made her look up. "Who's the guy you had coffee with today?" The knife stopped moving. Her face went completely still. And in that moment, I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear. David, I saw you. Wednesday afternoon. You left the clinic with him, went to a cafe in Northwest. She put down the knife. Her hands were shaking now. You followed me? I asked you a question. And you followed me? What the hell, David? The Westbrook Inn. Last month. 2 nights. During your Boston trip. Her face went pale. Actually pale, color draining like someone had opened a valve. She pulled out a chair and sat down hard. Oh God, she whispered. The room was very quiet. I could hear the refrigerator humming. A neighbor's dog barking in the distance. The vegetables sat half-chopped on the cutting board. How long? I asked. My voice sounded normal, almost conversational. David, it's not. She stopped, started again. It's not what you think. How long have you been sleeping with him? I'm not sleeping with anyone. Her voice broke. I swear to God, I'm not. Then what is it? What's happening every Wednesday? What was the Westbrook Inn? She covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook. She was crying, really crying, the kind of crying that sounds like it's being pulled from somewhere deep. I can't tell you, she said through her hands. You can't. I laughed, harsh and bitter. You can't tell me why you're meeting some guy every week? Why you lied about where you were? It's not like that. Then tell me what it's like. Rachel, tell me what it's like. Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like what I think it is. She dropped her hands. Her face was wet, eyes red, and she looked at me with something I couldn't identify. Not guilt, not shame, something else. I need you to trust me, she said quietly. Just a little longer. Please. Trust you. I know how this looks. I know what you must think. But I'm asking you, begging you, to trust me for 2 more weeks. Then I'll tell you everything. Promise. Everything. 2 weeks. Please, David. I looked at my wife, this woman I'd loved for 8 years, shared a life with, built a home with, and I didn't know her at all. No, I said. Tell me now or I'm leaving. Tonight. I'll pack a bag and go to Marcus's, and we can figure out the rest later. But I'm not staying here with lies. She stood up slowly, walked to her purse hanging by the door, and pulled out her phone. She scrolled through something, then handed it to me. Look at the calendar, she said. October 15th. What does it say? I looked. October 15th, 2 weeks away, blocked out all day, test results appointment. I looked up at her, not understanding. I found a lump, she said. So quietly I almost didn't hear. 3 months ago, in my left breast. I went to Dr. Morrison and she ordered a mammogram, then an ultrasound, then a biopsy. The man you saw me with is Dr. Richard Chin. He's an oncologist. We've been discussing treatment options in case the biopsy comes back positive. The Westbrook Inn was a medical conference in Seattle where he was speaking. I went to hear him present on new breast cancer treatments. I paid cash because I didn't want the charge showing up on our statements before I knew for sure. Before I had to tell you that your wife might have cancer. The room tilted. Actually tilted. Like the floor had become a ship's deck. What? I'm probably fine. Dr. Morrison thinks it's probably benign. But the biopsy results take time and there were complications with the lab, so we had to wait, and I didn't want to worry you until I knew for sure. I didn't want you looking at me differently, treating me like I was fragile. Spending 3 months terrified when it might be nothing. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Rachel. The Wednesday meetings are planning sessions. Dr. Chun is the best in Portland. If it's cancer, if I need treatment, I wanted to be prepared. I wanted to know my options, understand the process, have a plan. I couldn't just sit and wait and fall apart. You know me, David. You know I need to have a plan. I was still holding her phone. I looked down at the calendar again, started scrolling back. Doctor appointments, color-coded. Yellow for Morrison, blue for Chun. Tests, results, consultations. A 3-month nightmare she'd been living alone. Why didn't you tell me? My voice cracked. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was terrified, she whispered. Because my mother died of breast cancer when she was 41 and I'm 33, and I found this lump in the shower one morning, and for a moment I just couldn't breathe. I thought, this is it. This is how I die. And I couldn't put that on you. Not until I knew. I set the phone down carefully on the table. My hands were shaking now, tremors I couldn't control. I thought you were having an affair. I know. I've spent 2 weeks thinking you were sleeping with someone else. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I sat down because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. Rachel came and knelt beside my chair, taking my hands. October 15th, she said. Dr. Morrison's office, 10 a.m. I get the results. I was going to tell you the night before. I had it all planned. I was going to cook your favorite dinner, and we'd sit on the back deck, and I'd tell you everything. And then, whatever the results were, we'd face them together. I just needed to get through it first. To be strong enough to say the words out loud. I pulled her into my arms, held her so tight I could feel her heartbeat against my chest. Or maybe it was mine. I couldn't tell anymore. I'm so sorry, I said into her hair. God, Rachel, I'm so sorry. You didn't know. I should have asked. I should have trusted you. You did trust me. For 6 years, you trusted me completely. 2 weeks of doubt doesn't erase that. We stayed like that for a long time, holding each other on the kitchen floor while the vegetables dried out on the cutting board and the evening light faded through the windows. That night, we talked until 3 a.m. She told me everything. The terror of finding the lump, the fear during the mammogram, the biopsy that hurt more than they said it would. She showed me the scar, small and pink, hidden beneath her left breast where I wouldn't normally see it. She told me about researching survival rates at 2 in the morning, about the days she'd driven to work crying, about how every patient she treated felt like a mirror showing her possible futures. Why Dr. Chun specifically? I asked. Why him? He's researching a new targeted therapy, less aggressive than traditional chemo, better outcomes for early-stage cases. I wanted to know if I'd be eligible, what my options were. I'm sorry about the secrecy. I'm sorry I met with him alone. But I needed to understand the medical side before I could handle the emotional side. And you're really not sleeping with him? She actually laughed, wet and broken. He's married with 3 kids and talks about his wife constantly. And he's an oncologist. I might need to keep me alive, David. Not exactly a fair material. I'm an idiot. You're not. You found weird evidence and drew logical conclusions. I made this happen by lying. You didn't lie. You just delayed the truth. That's a nice way to put it. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I went with Rachel to every appointment she'd hidden from me. A follow-up with Dr. Morrison, another scan, a consultation with a surgeon, just in case. I met Dr. Chun officially, shook his hand, apologized internally for every paranoid thought I'd had. He was kind, thorough, and clearly respected Rachel's need to understand every detail of her care. I took time off work. We didn't tell anyone else. Rachel wanted to wait for results before worrying her sister or my parents. We existed in this bubble of uncertainty, trying to live normally while knowing everything might change. October 14th, the night before the results appointment, we did cook dinner on the back deck. Salmon, roasted vegetables, that expensive wine we'd been saving. The weather was turning cold, but we bundled up in sweaters and sat outside watching the stars come out. Whatever happens tomorrow, Rachel said, I need you to know something. Okay. I don't regret keeping this from you at first. I needed that time to process it alone, to be scared alone, to find my strength. But I regret every day of the last month. I should have told you after the biopsy. I should have trusted you with the fear. We're both learning, I said. Turns out marriage doesn't come with a manual for this stuff. No instruction booklet for what to do when your wife might have cancer and your husband thinks she's cheating. That's a terrible manual title. She laughed, and it was real. And in that moment, I loved her more than I ever had. October 15th. Dr. Morrison's office. Beige walls, magazines from 6 months ago. A receptionist with kind eyes who recognized us immediately. We sat holding hands in the waiting room, not talking. There was nothing left to say. "Rachel Hoffman?" the nurse called. We stood together. Rachel's hand was cold in mine. Dr. Morrison was a woman in her 50s with gray streaks in her dark hair and the kind of steady presence that made you trust her immediately. She had Rachel's chart open on her desk, and she looked up when we entered with an expression I couldn't read. "Rachel, David. Please sit." We sat. "I have your biopsy results," Dr. Morrison said, "and I have some news that might surprise you." My heart stopped. Actually stopped. The lump is benign. It's a fibroadenoma, completely non-cancerous. You're going to be fine. The relief was so intense I felt dizzy. Rachel made a small sound, something between a laugh and a sob. "However," Dr. Morrison continued, and my relief froze mid-flight, "when we did the advanced imaging, we found something else." No, not after everything. "We found significant scar tissue in your left fallopian tube, consistent with an ectopic pregnancy at some point in the past. Were you aware of this?" Rachel's hand went slack in mine. "What? No, I've never been pregnant. The scarring is definitely there. It would have occurred at least 5 to 7 years ago, possibly longer. An ectopic pregnancy that may have resolved on its own or been misdiagnosed as something else. Perhaps severe cramping or what you thought was a bad period." Rachel was shaking her head. "I don't understand. I would have known. Wouldn't I?" "Not necessarily. Some ectopic pregnancies present with symptoms that mimic other conditions. Without a pregnancy test or ultrasound, they can go undiagnosed. The scarring I'm seeing suggests the pregnancy ended naturally, but it did cause damage. Significant damage." "What kind of damage?" I heard myself ask. Dr. Morrison's expression softened. "The scarring would make natural pregnancy extremely difficult. Not impossible, but unlikely without medical intervention." "I'm sorry. I know this isn't what we were here to discuss today." The room was very quiet. "The good news," Dr. Morrison said gently, "is that you don't have cancer. The lump is benign. You're healthy. But I wanted you to have this information so you can make informed decisions about your future." Rachel hadn't moved. She was staring at something I couldn't see. "Can you give us a moment?" I asked. Dr. Morrison nodded and left quietly. "Rachel, 7 years ago," she said slowly, "I was 26. She stopped. Her face changed, memory dawning like horror. "Oh my God. What?" "I was with Jake, my ex. We broke up right before I met you." Her voice was hollow. "I had this awful period in March that year. Cramps so bad I went to the ER. They said it was a ruptured ovarian cyst, gave me pain meds, sent me home. But I was so sick, David. I was sick for weeks after. You never told me that. It was before we met. Before us. It didn't matter." She looked at me, eyes wide. "I was pregnant. I was pregnant with Jake's baby, and I didn't even know, and my body just ended it, and left scars. And now we can't." She couldn't finish. I pulled her into my arms right there in Dr. Morrison's office. She was crying now, really crying, and I realized we'd never talked about kids. Not seriously. Not beyond vague someday maybe conversations. We'd been focused on the house, our careers, traveling. Kids were this abstract future we'd figure out later. Except later might not happen. Not naturally. Not the way we'd assumed. "We'll figure it out," I said into her hair. "IVF, adoption, fostering, there are options. We'll figure it out." "I'm sorry." "For what? For your body doing something you had no control over? Don't apologize for this." But she was apologizing, sobbing apologies into my shirt, and I understood. She'd spent 3 months thinking she might die, only to discover she'd been carrying a different kind of loss all along. A loss that happened before we even met, before we existed as us. But that would shape our future anyway. We stayed in that office for 20 minutes before Dr. Morrison quietly knocked and came back in. She gave us referrals to a fertility specialist, talked about options, made it clear there were paths forward. But Rachel barely heard her. She was somewhere else, processing this double revelation. Not dying, but maybe not becoming a mother the way she'd always assumed she would. We drove home in silence. I kept glancing at Rachel, watching her face, seeing thoughts move across it like clouds. When we got to the house, she went straight to the bedroom and lay down, still wearing her shoes. I sat beside her. Talk to me. I don't know what to say. I'm not dying. That's good. That's incredible. I should be happy. But I lost a baby I didn't know I had. And I might never have another one. And I've been so focused on not having cancer that I didn't even think about. She pressed her hands over her face. I'm 33, David. I always thought we had time. I thought eventually we'd just decide. And now the decision might not be ours to make. It's still ours, I said quietly. Maybe it looks different than we imagined. Maybe it's harder, but it's still ours. She turned to look at me, mascara smudged under her eyes. You followed me because you thought I was cheating. You spent 2 weeks investigating your own wife. I know. I'm not proud of that. No, listen. You followed me because you loved me, because you cared enough to be hurt by the possibility of losing me. That's what I need right now, David. I need to know you're not going anywhere, that this doesn't change us. It doesn't. Even if we can't have kids naturally, even if fertility treatments don't work, even if our perfect plan for the future just evaporates. I lay down beside her, our faces inches apart on the pillow. When I thought you might have cancer, do you know what I kept thinking about? What? Mornings. Just regular Tuesday mornings with you standing on your toes to kiss my head. That's what I'd miss. Not kids we haven't had, not vacations we haven't taken. Just you. The reality of you. Every boring, beautiful, ordinary day. She started crying again, but softer now. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I'm sorry I didn't ask. We're both terrible at this. Spectacularly terrible. She laughed through tears. What do we do now? Now, we take a breath. We process. We make an appointment with the fertility specialist. We tell our families you're okay. We live. Just live. Just live. No secrets. No investigations. No handling things alone. We do this together. Together, she repeated, like she was testing the word. That night, we ordered pizza and sat on the back deck even though it was cold. We talked about everything. Her fears about her mother's cancer, my paranoia about the affair that wasn't, the weird relief of a problem you can solve versus one you can't. We talked about names we liked for kids that might never exist and whether we'd want a big wedding vow renewal someday or just a quiet weekend at the coast. We talked until the stars came out and the neighbors' lights went off and it was just us in the dark, holding hands, figuring it out. The next morning, I woke up to find Rachel in the kitchen, already dressed, making coffee. She'd put the receipt from the Westbrook Inn in the trash. I pulled it out, looked at it one more time, evidence of the investigation that wasn't, and put it back where it belonged. Throwing away the evidence? Rachel said, watching me. It's not evidence. It never was. It's just a receipt. A receipt that almost ended us. No, my lack of trust almost ended us. Your fear almost ended us. But we're still here. She poured me coffee, added cream the way I liked it. I called the fertility clinic. We have a consultation in 3 weeks. Okay. And I told my sister everything. She wants to come visit this weekend. That's good. David. Yeah. Thank you for following me. I know that sounds insane. But you cared enough to investigate instead of just leaving. You cared enough to ask instead of assuming. That matters. I kissed her forehead. I care enough to stay. Through all of it. The scary parts and the boring parts and the parts we haven't figured out yet. Even if we become the couple who can't have kids naturally? Even then. Especially then. She smiled, real and tired and hopeful. We're going to be okay. Aren't it we? Yeah. I said, meaning it. We're going to be okay. And here's what I learned through all of this. What I'm still learning. Marriage isn't about perfect trust or perfect communication. It's about choosing each other even when things are imperfect, even when you're scared, even when you've spent 2 weeks thinking the worst and discovering something more complicated than an affair. Discovering life in all its messy, unexpected, heartbreaking, beautiful reality. Rachel doesn't have cancer. She might never carry our child. Those are the facts. The truth is more complicated. The truth is she's brave in ways I didn't understand. The truth is I'm more paranoid than I thought. More hurt by the idea of losing her than I knew I could be. The truth is we both kept secrets, hers born from fear, mine born from suspicion, and nearly broke what we were trying to protect. But we're still here, still married, still standing in the kitchen on Tuesday mornings while she kisses my head and I pour her coffee. 3 months later, we met with Dr. Sarah Kim, the fertility specialist. She reviewed Rachel's records, did more tests, and gave us odds. 40% chance of natural pregnancy, 70% with IVF, 95% with donor eggs if we wanted to go that route. What do you want to do? I asked Rachel in the car after the appointment. She was quiet for a long time. Then, I want to try. I want to try everything. But I also want to live our life while we're trying. I don't want to put everything on hold waiting for something that might not happen. Okay. Yeah, we try. We live. We do both. So we did. We started IVF in January. It was harder than either of us expected. The shots, the hormones, the waiting, the hoping. The first cycle failed. The second one gave us a pregnancy that lasted 6 weeks before ending in miscarriage. Rachel cried for 3 days and I held her, and we grieved for this almost child, this possibility that became real just long enough to hurt when it disappeared. But we kept living too. We took that trip to Cannon Beach. We finished renovating the kitchen. Rachel got promoted at the clinic. I launched a new project at work. We existed in this strange space between trying for a future and living in the present. On a Tuesday morning in April, 1 year after I found the receipt, Rachel came into the bedroom holding a pregnancy test. The third IVF cycle had just completed, and we weren't supposed to test for another 3 days. But she couldn't wait. "Look," she said. 2 lines. Clear and unmistakable. "Is that positive?" she whispered. "We're pregnant." I won't tell you it was a perfect happy ending because life isn't like that. We had anxious weeks waiting for the heartbeat, for the blood tests to come back normal, for each ultrasound to confirm the pregnancy was progressing. Rachel was terrified every single day, and so was I. But on a Tuesday in December, we met our daughter. 7 pounds, 6 ounces, with Rachel's dark hair and my stubborn chin. We named her Sophie Marie Hoffman, and when the nurse placed her in Rachel's arms, my wife looked up at me with tears streaming down her face and said, "We did it. We actually did it. And we'd done it. Not easily. Not the way we planned. But together. Here's what I know now, what I wish I could tell myself on that Tuesday morning when I found the receipt. The truth is rarely what you think it is. The story you tell yourself about your life, about your marriage, about who you are and what you're facing, it's always incomplete. There's always more beneath the surface. I thought my wife was having an affair. She thought she was dying. We were both wrong and both right. The betrayal I imagined never happened, but trust was still broken. Not through infidelity, but through fear, through isolation, through the lies we tell to protect each other that end up nearly destroying us instead. And sometimes the scariest thing isn't the crisis itself. It's what the crisis reveals about the life you've been living. The assumptions you've made, the conversations you haven't had, the ticking clocks you've been ignoring. So yeah, I found a receipt that changed everything. But what it really changed wasn't my marriage. It was me. It taught me that trust isn't the absence of doubt. It's choosing belief even when doubt is screaming in your ear. It's asking questions instead of hiding with your suspicions. It's being brave enough to hear answers that might hurt. Sophie is 3 now. We haven't had another child. 1 IVF miracle was enough, Rachel says, and I agree. Our family is complete as we are. Rachel still kisses my head every morning. I still notice every detail, every receipt, every moment, but now I notice the good things too, not just the suspicious ones. And sometimes, when Sophie is asleep and Rachel and I are sitting on the back deck watching the tomatoes grow, I think about that Tuesday morning, how close we came to ending. How easily suspicion can curdle into accusation, fear into secrecy, love into loss. But we didn't end. We transformed. We became the couple who went through the fire and came out different, scarred, yes, but stronger. More honest. More real. That's the truth. Not the story I imagined. Not the ending I expected. Just the truth. Messy and complicated and more beautiful than any lie I could have told myself.
Wow. That was an incredibly intense and emotional story. Thank you for trusting us and sharing such a personal and painful experience with such honesty. Your journey, from betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak, to reclaiming your life and dignity, is truly powerful, and I know it will resonate with many of our viewers who have faced similar struggles. To everyone watching, this story is a reminder of the strength we all have inside us, even in the darkest moments. If Michael's story moved you, made you think, or helped you reflect on your own life, I encourage you to leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your experiences, or simply your support, it all matters. And don't forget to subscribe to When She Broke Us for more raw, real, and unfiltered stories of betrayal, resilience, and personal growth. Every story here reminds us that even through pain, there's a way to reclaim our power and dignity. Thank you for watching, and remember, your strength is greater than any betrayal, and your voice deserves to be heard.